man, do you feel me though?
Bruh.
Are you
All
with me?
the way.
Yo, I have to say, like, this is this is actually exciting, and it's so much fun to look forward to. It's the exciting, anxiety-inducing feeling before we do this. That's how you know niggas is doing what they enjoy. This is a blessing.
Yeah, and it's a blessing to be doing it with you, bruh. It's a blessing
Always.
to be doing it with you. Man,
Always.
you
Listen,
know.
before we even start talking about what it is we're doing, it's important that we lead with protocol and just welcome everybody to the All the Way Live podcast. You know, whether it's one person, 20 people, 30 people, 300 people, we appreciate every single person that's listening. We invite you into our minds. This is nothing more than a conversation between two best friends, between two brothers, and we just come to give you that which we care about, and hopefully it resonates with people to have a wider conversation. So welcome in.
Love.
Indeed. How's that for my intro? How are my intros getting, bro?
They
Tell me.
good. They
you
good.
you think so? You like these intros?
You're getting comfortable. You're finding a pocket for sure. Finding a pocket for sure. I'm in awe, you know. I'm trying to figure out when to double dutch in, but also I'm like, look at him go. Look at him go. Look at that welcome.
Well, allow me to pass the rock on. You know, my name is Zolake Gila. Thank you for joining us.
What it be like, Smiles Xavier?
Hey man, this is the All the Way Live podcast, bro. Another
Right,
Sunday.
it is.
Another Sunday. We made it.
Didn't know who was gonna make it.
It didn't look like it for a while, but like, you know, I think this was definitely a week of ideas and energies that have been manifested starting to realize themselves. And I always find it very important to be able to acknowledge those moments in whichever way that they come about.
Man, this man is manifesting and realizing. So let's acknowledge the dap up. What up?
Oh, smooth transition. How you doing, brother?
Hey, bro. Hey, you threw it to me. I'm shooting. Let's go. Back on D.
For sure. Well, hey, bro. Well, to be dapping in, you know, I must say again, I'm excited to come here onto the show. I see that there's 30 people listening. To me, that's a coveted audience as it is. That shows growth, and I'm appreciative of that. And more importantly, brother, I'm just here to come back and talk with my brother, man. Shoot the shits. This is exciting.
That's good, man. How's your week been? What's been keeping you busy? What's been on your mind? What you been on?
Man. For the most part, you know, it's always a weekly effort of how to keep growing the impact that people can have in communities. um that always takes up the most amount of time, which is what are more strategic ways to be able to get food to people that need to get food, ways to be able to increase the type of services, financial services that we provide people, to give them financial literacy. Whatever it is, it's an effort of doing that, and that battle is big. You know all about that battle.
Hey, bro. I'm fighting it with you. I'm smiling because I'm remembering as you talk about it. I'm remembering a conversation we had where I was pointing out, like, hey, bro, I was checking out the website for the foundation, and I was seeing all the additions that were being made to it, and I was happily surprised to find out that was a collaboration, an in-house, an in-live house,
collaboration,
if nothing else.
Well, it was a live house production. It was a live house
Exactly.
production. But while we there, my brother, come on, dap in. Tell us what you feeling like. What type of energy you bringing into this conversation today? Boom. So, my bro, tell me what type of energy you coming into this with, because this is clearly not a punch in. But what type of energy are you coming into this with, my man? Dap on in. Talk to the people.
Thank you, bro. What up, people? Today I bring you nothing but love, man. Just like straight up peaceful vibes, bro. Like, before the not punch in, I was saying it feels strange to be like finding my footing in chaos, right? Like, and by chaos, I mean both the political climate with like us being in the midst of the presidential and presidential debates,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just so many other things that are going on. I mean, Trump getting COVID is not at all. It's like inseparable from that, but it's also another separate issue that reminds, like, are you getting like a weird crisp like feedback from when I'm talking?
Nah, I can hear you perfectly. It's going
Oh, we're gonna
okay
keep
this side.
rocking.
All right.
So yeah, it's inseparable from like, bro, like just as a reminder of like how he's just been messing up and how hard he's been, like how terribly he's been handling the whole situation. Um and then you have like this restarting of school. So parents are dealing with like remote learning and how to like manage that and still provide like an education to their kids while figuring out how to go back to work. Those of us who are blessed enough to have jobs, right?
Mm, mm.
So it's just, that's what I mean by chaos. And it feels strange to be like finding my footing in chaos, in the sense that like not everything terrible with me, dog. You know what I mean? And like, you know,
Yeah.
not to make light of like what people are going through right now, but like
Mm.
some, like I've had dope opportunities to like both support my community and like also to just to like, you know, just enjoy life in spite of everything that's going on. And building Live House has been a huge part of that. You know what I mean? But just how much of my time I spend doing the things that I love and care about, spinning records, helping people, and watching all of that bear fruit in real
Yeah.
time is like strange. And it feels crazy to be excited about, you know, if nothing else, how this year is wrapping up in a personal sense, while we are in if not the most chaotic, right,
Mm.
like
It
era of
surely is.
time
It
that we've
feels
ever
that way.
experienced, you know?
It feels that way. It definitely feels like the most chaotic of times. I was having dinner today and just listening to a group of people speak about how long this year has been and that there's still so much to go, especially with the window of space that is invited by the election. Um and we've spoken about this before, but like I think it's always important to check in every week. Just what is your sentiment of the political sphere right now, especially given how crazy it is. President gets COVID, flies landing on vice president's heads. It's a whirlwind of information to take in.
Yeah, I think well, I think the fly thing, right, just perfectly encapsulates this moment. It is the most extreme occurrences in terms of like pivotal, desperate times, in terms of a national pandemic, even in terms of climate change, in terms of poverty, in terms of like violence in America and the world over. And like our focus continues to drift to these like wild sidebars. You know what I mean? And I think,
Nonsensical things.
yeah, you know, like to the point where like we would rather all focus our attention on a fly that landed on some dude's head than anything either of the candidates said throughout the whole
At all.
John. You
At
know what I
all.
mean? And so like, not that I'm super enamored with our, you know, the candidates that we have on either side, but I mean, first of all, fuck Trump. Like, let's not get it twisted.
FTP.
But like, there's something to be said for like at least pretending that we are
Mm.
still caring about the issues or like discussing them. Not that I think the vice presidential debate, they did a better job of actually discussing issues, but like it's just so far from us even having a serious discussion that it's terrifying. That's how I would say, that's how I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah. There seems to be a very the the importance of the conversations that need to be had seems secondary to the objective of insulting and belittling and berating the candidate. And that makes it difficult in the sense that like this is the most important time to get information out in terms of what is the economical future planned out for this country in order to grasp it out of recession and high unemployment and a lingering debt rate that's about to explode at any time and things of that nature. Like those conversations are super important now more than ever. And instead, it's a matter of shut up, man. It's very juvenile in its feeling. It's very very juvenile.
Yeah, it feels juvenile to me from this end, and it feels embarrassing, right? To know that to people on the outside, people in South Africa, to people in London, to people in Australia, to people in Nigeria, that we look like clowns. You know what I mean? Like our president, like they're up there calling each other clowns, and everyone agrees.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that.
When things are that tough, bro, it's important to have a way to kick back. It's important to have a way to
Yes.
unwind and de-stress. You know, this is that for me. This podcast is that for me. Like
Yeah.
just being able to come through. Does this podcast constitutes as a vice?
Ooh. Well, I think that depends on how you would define a vice, my friend. I think that would depend on how you would define a vice. How
I
would
think
you?
we just stumbled upon a conversation right here. Stumbled upon a conversation right here.
Hey, bro, that pre-production be working, dog. That pre-production be working.
Yo,
That
these
pre-pro.
transitions is clean.
That pre.
These transitions is clean.
Hey, dog.
What out of consider advice? I think in my most simple of minds, I would define advice as being something that is that could be a time of physical detriment to you, something that has a higher cost than. You see, I'm trying to be very careful with this. Something that has a high cost for you to enjoy in increments.
But it's a high cost. It's a high cost.
There's a cost to it. I think a vice has a cost to it. Like walk with me, right? For instance, cigarettes. The cost that has is the cost on your health. Granted, the packages are also like what, $11, $12, whatever. That's a cost to your health. If we're talking substances, right? Before weed was legal, the cost of that is the cost of your freedom or your jail time, or you're doing something that's against the law. That is a cost on your freedom to a certain extent, and that's what I think of vices.
So
what would you say?
I'd agree with you. Like I think you said put it perfectly, to the point where, so my next question is, if a vice, well, I think that's a great place to start, right? So if a vice is something that we do that has a cost, why do we do it?
Bro, it has to be neurological, right? It has to be all neurological. So this whole week I've been reading a book called The Science of Sin. And it pretty much just goes into the brain as to why we do the things that we need to do. Like
Stumbled upon. Look at that. That pre-pro. Stumbled upon. That's ill. I actually did not know that. You've been reading hella shit lately. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I have been. It's dope, bro. It's dope. And having this podcast to have things to read for, it's also pretty lit too.
Congratulations.
But that being, did you just congratulate me for reading, sir?
Good job, man.
Congratulations. Likewise, my brother. Thanks. No, but the whole concept of it, right, is that there's a neurological impulse that leads people to do the things that they do in an order to, at the end of the day, either get a spike of dopamine or to suppress some other instinctual neurological reactions to things, right? So what I mean by that, and if we're being transparent, the portion of the book that was most relevant to me was the impact of porn on your daily sex life and like the mental impacts of watching pornographic porn. And you see that there's a clear trajectory.
I was about to say, do you care to elaborate? But you kept going. Go. Run, keep going.
And obviously, I'm speaking in a general term when I say I'm not saying I as me.
No, someone who is not me.
Someone who is not me, clearly. It's just called good radio, is what it's called. So essentially, there's a dopamine rush that you go to, right? So the reason why the pathway and trajectory of people who are into pornography is that they tend to now accumulate certain types of videos and what they would describe as a cocktail in order to finally reach that point of ecstasy, is because the novelty of the dopamine rush from the first instance has diminished significantly. So that's why a lot of people tend to turn to vices and porn that is very out there is because their levels of dopamine in order to get shocked have expounded into now the extremes of it. Fascinating stuff.
Porn cocktails is hilarious. Like
That is the name of this podcast, bro.
porn cocktail is so funny.
As I was speaking, I was looking at you
I
laughing.
think I'm
I'm
building
like,
a playlist of like, oh, this is gonna get me later in like 7 minutes is hilarious, dude.
well, nah, let's
like
not.
this is really
let's not
gonna
jump
kill
to
him.
it.
Me. I'm a nut. Yo, that's so funny.
But bro, you can see that in so many things outside of just porn. Like that habit of having to have an extra bit more in order to get any point of ecstasy is relevant, man. So,
yeah.
I'll also right back at you what you said.
Yeah, no,
Can
thank
you
you.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your video's cutting it in and out a little bit. I don't know if we should wait for it to come back.
I'm interested to catch what your thoughts are on the value of vices and whatnot.
The value of vices is a great, safer alternative name. We have one in the tuck. You will know how we're feeling next Friday by which name we choose to put on the
podcast. Dude, it's gonna be like a pretty Ricky title in quotations. In porn cocktails.
Pretty Ricky is such an appropriate reference to vices, right? The vice conversation.
Right.
Yo, so actually someone in pre-pro and like just even tossing around the idea of like just speaking about vices. I had one in particular that's kind of like not weighing on me, but like one that I've been like consciously trying to address, right? Which to me is actually one that like a lot of the times you wouldn't think of as a vice, isn't always necessarily, but to me it's been noise, right?
Interesting.
So like the idea that lately over the last few months, there have been times where I'll be getting ready to shower or cook or I don't know, some other like task where you don't need your full cognitive, like, you know what I'm saying, abilities. And I'll find myself reaching toward like music or film or like content, but not because like, oh, I really want to watch this, but like literally having like the half conscious, subconscious thought of like, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts right now. Right.
I'm glad you went there. I'm glad you went there because I was going to ask you then, how much of that noise is it to suppress isolation with your thoughts?
Yeah, and so it's not always that. And like as somebody who listens to music and has always spent a lot of their time like listening to music, like with different audiobooks, podcasts, like it's not odd for me to spend a high amount of time with something playing or listening to something, but it is odd for that to be my thought process. Like it kind of was like a yellow, orange, like an orange flag, not quite a red flag, but an orange flag to me that like I even felt my brain feeling like I don't want to be alone with my thoughts, which as I've been thinking about it and like processing it, I feel like it's just been more of like, I can't shut them off. Like I'll have decided how I feel about something, whether it is politics or whether it is like a more personal matter or like preparation for like the pod or something. Like I'm just, my brain will just go. And I've been tired of like thinking about whatever it might be. And I'm just like, bro, I don't want to keep going in circles about this. Let me fill my ears with something else. Right.
Yeah.
So it's been about just being mindful of that. And then also just being like, how can I resist the urge to drown it out? And just like, if I have the time and I have the space and the energy, just like actually just be like, no, hold on. Let's try and like unwind this for real in my head rather than just like drown it out until it goes away. So noise go ahead.
I was gonna say like it touches on the whole concept of like the accomplishment of man is to silence himself. You know what I mean? And I forgot who broke that down, but the whole concept of like Buddhism and Buddhism and anything that's meditative in its nature, even doing the hymns in Islam is meant to center you in a place where you have to confront your thoughts. But that's real though, bro. Like you, and you're so right in the sense that once you are awake to it and realize that you're doing it, it's quite awe-shocking. It's like, whoa, that's crazy that I'm spending that much time just filling my ears with noise. That's something that I definitely resonate with. Be it content is constantly streaming into my ears. If I'm not listening lately, I've just been on YouTube just burning hours on there listening to anything that I can.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it goes to achieve the same thing.
Yeah. And I think, and that's how it kind of ties into the whole vice conversation, right? Is at a certain point, like noise, whatever that is, whatever that content is, can be really good, right? And you can like learn from it and like, you know, really you can enjoy it and it can connect with you and resonate with you heavy. And I think we had a lot of content that came out this week that did just that.
Ooh.
So hell yeah. See that behind the back
Ooh.
transition? We getting that, but let me finish the spin move. But yeah, so I think at a certain point, your vice is like, you know what I mean? Noise becomes a vice when you're using it specifically. And the cost of that is whatever you would have found out if you had paid attention to your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's so real. That's so real. As someone that struggles with thoughts running rampant and being an overthinker of sorts, meditation has been so helpful for me in that, and in that it forces you to be in a place where you have to silence yourself and just be able to allow thoughts to pass, because that's what it ultimately comes down to. What type of thoughts can you allow to pass in front of you without you dwelling on them to the point where you're no longer your thoughts, yet you're an observer of your thoughts?
Yeah. And it's interesting.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah. If you ain't know, if you were worried I wasn't gonna give you your props on that. No, that's super solid, bro.
For sure. I think you're about to swerve us into some of the new music that came out.
Well, yeah, man. I was just gonna say that even in, you know, recognizing like, you know, when it's time to sit with your thoughts and when it's time to find out if some of that new shit slapping. I think it can even be useful to to even think of not of like being alone with your thoughts and thinking through whatever your mind might be spiraling about as like something that is nagging at you in the back of your head, but something that you do have to address as a whole task in itself, like doing the dishes or, you know what I mean, cooking or like taking a shower. You do have to take time to deal with your mental health. And then once you're done, you can find out if reason is the best, like whatever, what you say, what did we call it on the previous episode?
Ooh.
Leader of the new school, leader of the best rapping ass niggas from that are not Kendrick and J. Cole age and shit.
I need to hear your thoughts on it first. What are your thoughts on this Reason album?
I think we have a lot of young, talented artists. And luckily there's a song on the album with that has 3 of them on it. But I think you have Reason, you have Isaiah Rashad, you have JID, you have Kenny Mason, and Boogie.
IDK, you'd have to put into that race. Denzel,
keep
Curry,
throwing him in that nigga play race, nigga. I don't know about IDK. I definitely put Denzel in there.
He's not. The thing about it though is that IDK is not that much behind JID. Is the thing in terms of accomplishments, in terms of bodies of work, like they're not that far off from each other. JID has had a lot of things slip at the same time.
All right,
that whole DiCaprio 2 album, people want to act like that album doesn't exist. That's a real thing.
Well, you see where I'm going with it, because so even we can put IDK in that conversation, and maybe that's my blind spot in hip hop. You gotta have one, you know that you got a blind spot. So, but I would say that all of those artists that we just mentioned, right, put out a very solid first effort, or at least a singular project that stands out as putting them in contention for a rap, like on the list of rappers, the short list of rappers that is doing more lyrically and doing more artfully with their music, right?
And this is a lyrical conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mm.
So I think this as reasons like there's been a couple mixtape, but like second official like release, right? This would be, I would equate this to his follow-up to his debut album, right? Just in the same way
That's a
that,
fair assumption to say.
right? In the same way that, as you mentioned, DiCaprio 2 was the follow-up to The Never Story, right? And we got The Sun's Tirade as the follow-up to Sylvia Demo from Isaiah Rashad.
That's correct. And then we've got Boogie's latest album, which
Everything's for
is
Sale.
Everything is for Sale, which is a follow-up to
Thirst 48
the
1 and 2. That
48 series,
yeah. So I would say that this, being Reason's follow-up, is probably one of the stronger follow-ups. I think Everything for Sale is up there too. But when I listened through this album the first time, I thought it was back end heavy in terms of like real raps and what I wanted from Reason. And when I listened to it in the whip the second time, I was like, oh no, this whole thing slap. And then I listened to it in the crib again the third time, and I was like, well, the second half is stronger, but the first half does a lot to like balance the album and just show that he can kind of be fun, for lack of a better term, right? I don't know if
he was trying to be fun. Let's put it that way.
I think he succeeded where he was trying. I think he succeeded. But
I think like the album is good. What I realize is that Reason gives me a bit of ear fatigue.
That's fair.
In the same ways that are reminiscent of like a Danny Brown. When I first listened to Danny Brown, I was super excited by the content and the skills that this person had, but it was always hard for me to power through a whole body of work cohesively because I just get ear fatigue from it. Same thing that we used to get for dare I say Thug albums a while back, up until he started just knocking them out of the park in consistency, where it's just like I really dig everything that this person is doing in terms of their style, their approach, their content, but to listen through an entire body of work is more difficult for me on this album than it is for other albums, and especially his first one.
That's really interesting because I feel like the other people you named, like Thug and Danny Brown, are a lot more eclectic with their style, right? So they're a lot more like, you know what I mean? Like they're a lot more kind of out there and do a lot more risk taking vocally than Reason does. So it's interesting that, is it his voice or is it his cadence, his flow?
I'm not sure, bro. And I asked a few people this weekend what they think, and everyone was like, "Yeah, I like Reason, but like, this chicken's missing a little more salt," type situation, And it was very difficult for people to put their finger on where the ear fatigue usually comes from. I tried to bump this album 4 times this week, never got through it twice. You know what I mean? And it's a good album, and the fact that I kept on giving it a try and opening it up into different environments, in the car with the homies, at the crib, in the earphones, because there's a lot of albums that we run through once and throw that back. So the fact that it has that effect to go back to it signifies a good album. I'm just interested in the fact that I tend to see people all kind of having the same feeling towards Reason's music.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think it's very good. I think it's better than most of. I think that too. I think There You Have It, and what's the new album called? New Beginnings.
Yeah.
I think that 1 and 2 is better than JID's offering, better than damn near everybody except Isaiah Rashad's.
And I think you can't say that in the face of a Boogie, bro. You can't say that in the face of a Boogie. Not while Boogie's around.
Yeah, true. He's in there too. Those would be the 3. But I think I put this album.
Or Gold Link.
It depends on how you feel about Diaspora. Ooh, but if you're talking about At What Cost and uh
After that, we never spoke.
no. If you're talking about the God complex and at what cost, then that's a different conversation.
Mhm.
So
That's a whole different conversation.
yeah, I would put Gold Link in there too. But I would say that There You Have It and this album by Reason are just as good, if not better than um whichever of the Thirst 48s. Not if you use both of them, but if you pick Thirst 48 Part 2 and Everything's for
Yeah,
Sale, I think these two albums are better than that. So
interesting.
I
Interesting.
think Reason is rapping his ass off, bro. Like that dude is truly rapping. That dude is saying a lot of things. He's making different types of songs on different types of beats. I think the
Yeah,
joint with Rhapsody is one of the best like
that's hard.
collaborations that shows like lyricism between a male and a female rapper that doesn't like, you know what I mean, overplay
Mm.
that or over sexualize that. I think that's dope. I think The Fall is very like dope and reminiscent of Sing About Me. So there's a lot of like TDE influence that you can
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
like throughout the album.
Throughout the production too, the production, the TD influence of the production really does shine through. Very crisp. TD as a way of making very cinematic hip hop. You know what I mean? It's very simple in the sense of what it uses production wise, but the feeling of it is super cinematic, and that's beautiful. And you hear that on this album too.
Yeah, I don't think it was overdone with features. And I think where the features came in, they did super well. I think Schoolboy goes
Mm,
crazy on pop shit. I think Ab Soul for like the first time in a long time has the
mm,
best verse on a song with Flick It Up.
for sure.
I think if you hadn't heard those tracks, I think if you hadn't heard Flick It Up, Showstop, and Pop Shit before the album
Yes,
drops, it's a
yes.
very different listen. Like
It's
all
a
the way.
very different listen. And the fact that TDE brings out music the way it does, the way that these singles were staggered, we didn't know where they were going to end up and whatnot. So people consume that very differently. But if we knew that these were all leading up to a put out, but it's also interesting that TDE is letting them release music on a more consistent, letting him release music on a more consistent basis than some of their other acts.
Yeah. If you would call this that, I feel like, I mean, obviously everybody's rollout got experienced some chop due to COVID,
Mm.
right? Everybody was dealing with mad chop. So, things fell where they fell. But I just feel like, and this is an even more interesting conversation, I think, even broader than Reason, but there are certain artists, particularly the ones that like we're speaking about in terms of the more lyrical artists, that I don't want a whole bunch of singles.
Like who?
I feel like if we're including
Isaiah
like
Rashad.
yeah, well, Isaiah, it's been so long from Isaiah Rashad that I'm just thirsty for music from Isaiah Rashad regardless.
Mm.
But typically, right? So like from a JID, from a um even like Boogie, like I don't necessarily want to hear a whole bunch of singles before your album drops. It feels like to me like the trailer before a movie. If I really am gonna care about your album, like if you really want me to care about it as a piece of art, then like don't show me too much of the movie in the trailer. You know what I mean? I don't care about
Yeah.
singles. I understand that you got to play the industry game, but if you're gonna try and put together a meaningful album, like let me, because I think to the detriment of the album, people had already run through the high energy points of the album, and so the rest of it kind of
Yeah.
feels eh.
Lackluster. That could be a fact that all of the singles that came out were the highest points of that album, and there was so much more to that album that could have stood on its own if the high points weren't exposed a lot earlier. Because it's that's a lot of hype. Showstop, Flake It Up. It's a lot of hype.
But as somebody who is a fan of Reason, and somebody who I would consider myself very critical of hip hop. I'm happy for him having made this. Like I think as a part of his discography, this will very much help as he continues to like gain, stature in the hip hop game. I think that is a solid second album to stand on.
What do you think is the highest points of rap stardom we can expect Reason to hit?
Nigga keeps leaving them by the rim. I think the best version of Reason, like maybe not best case scenario, but I think a perfect lane for him to slide in is to be Meek 2.0.
Mm, okay. Okay, I see. You have to have an anthem if you're Meek. Meek, keep an anthem. Have an anthem and a summer jam. That's what you need.
He can do it. He can do it. He just needs the exposure. If A Boogie dropped what's the trunk in the back? Pop the trunk in the back off There You
Yeah.
Have It off the first album. That song goes crazy. That
You
song
think
goes
so?
that song goes absolutely nuts. I think Reason has joints that I think even Showstop, if you actually put featuring Kendrick Lamar on Showstop for them damn ad libs and put a verse on it, I think that song goes crazy. I don't know why they didn't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
You hear Kendrick all over that bitch in ad libs. Like, do the verse. Do the verse.
That featuring Kendrick part is my favorite.
But like that's like I don't think he's I think he is. I'm not saying he can't do it by himself, which is what I meant by referencing the first song. But I think that he is that look away from getting that anthem.
Close enough.
I think he's a look away from getting that anthem. And I think he can be like Meek is, consistently put out the quality of music to consistently be in the conversation of who is relevant, if not at the top of the game. You know what I mean? Like we were talking to like Meek has been not everybody wasn't a fan. They be acting like they was, but not everybody was a fan back when it was Big Sean and Wale. But Meek was putting out music on MMG and a big part of that MMG label. And he's continued to be relevant. Sure. That was 2011. We about to be in 2021. And he just dropped that movie, bruh. Charm City Kings, bruh.
How is that?
Bruh. Bruhs.
Really? Charm City King.
Bruhs and bruettes. Hear me. Hear me now.
His Lordship Miles Xavier is about to speak. Pay attention. Now.
Charm City Kings is on HBO Max. I know y'all got HBO Max, or at least got a hookup because y'all motherfuckers been watching Lovecraft Country. I know you have.
Everybody, have you been watching Lovecraft Country?
Of course. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Lovecraft Country is. What is that?
Lovecraft Country is a HBO show about Black people and like supernatural racism.
Supernatural racism. So regular racism.
Yeah, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? It's racism with sauce. Racism with spells and shit. But
so it's like superheroes but with racism.
Like, but mostly villains because racism. But like
because they're Black, obviously.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But
that's not vampires in Brooklyn, is it?
It has some vampire in Brooklyn moments. It definitely has some vampire in Brooklyn moments.
Yuck.
Hey, a lot of people are watching it. Enough that I say, I know y'all have at least thought about who your plug is for HBO Max or whatever that shit is. Get it. Watch Charm City Kings, because that is the best movie that you have heard attached to a rapper in a long time.
Even better than Takers is what you're saying.
That's funny. That's really that's really funny.
But new, even better than Get Rich or Die Trying 2.
There is not a Get Rich or Die Trying 2. Get out of here.
No, I don't know if that is. I just made that up, but it probably is, dude.
It's better than Belly 2. I'll tell you that.
Belly 2.
It's way better than Belly 2. And that's a horrible standard to judge a movie by. It's actually very good. Like, honestly, Meek is in it more than I thought he would be, and does a good job. He does a good job.
His own.
It's about a young kid. I think it's set in Baltimore actually, and not Philadelphia. And he's obviously British, so his accent kind of slips a little bit.
No,
he's young.
Oh, the kid is British, not Meek is trying to be British.
Nigga.
Please don't tell me Meek tries to be British. Please don't tell me Meek tries to be British,
bro.
Oh,
the kid in real life, the actor. God damn it. Go watch the movie. It's very good. The actor is British, and so the young child actor is British, and he does a very, very good job, but he is British, and you can hear it in his voice a little bit throughout the movie. That is my biggest critique of the movie. Like, other than that, it is very, Good, very good.
Hold on, wait a minute, bruv. Y'all thought I was finished, innit?
God damn it, dude.
Y'all thought I was finished, innit? That's the title of this episode.
Y'all thought
Porn
we was
cocktails.
finished, innit?
Oh my goodness. No, but that's so real. That's so real. And I think like noticing how a bunch of cinemas are closing, a bunch of movie theaters are closing, the importance of a cinematic experience at home becomes so much more important, and being able to recreate that type of space, especially if you're a filmophile.
Yeah. I don't know how much I like that word.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a real word either. I just said it. I thought because an audiophile is somebody that
it's
really
a cinephile. I'm
audio.
pretty sure it's a cinephile, which is for
What
cinema.
did I say?
You said a filmophile,
Ha, dude, that is so wrong.
which sounds like you love a nigga named Fillmore. That's wild.
I am who I am, bro.
Yeah. Hey, bro. And we welcome all types here at the All the Way Live
Yeah,
podcast.
I am who I am.
Come as you are. Yo, but
as you said.
But you hit up on something. You hit up on something dope too, as far as like movie theaters and stuff closing. And I can't even reiterate enough. Go watch that. Go watch Charm City Kings, man. That stuff is dope. If you're looking for something to watch, because everybody is. So they're reclosing movie theaters. They're reclosing movie theaters this side in the States, right? And like, I guess apparently that sucks for Tenet. Apparently,
yes. Tenet is coming out on Pirate Bay next week.
It need to. I've been looking, boy.
That's a cinematic experience, you know, going to go see Tenet up live. That would be a fly experience.
It would be, but not one that like, yo, I love going to movies. I'm even the type of dude that would go to the movies by myself if I thought the movie was fly enough.
Yeah, you're a filmophile.
Don't call me names, dude. That I would even go to the I don't even want to say that. Yo,
it's a filmophile, bro.
See, and I was such a fan of AKAs before this, but that one I don't like.
AKA Filmo on file. You know me.
Bruh. So go what was I gonna say? Yeah, apparently that tanked. Apparently that tanked the movie, right? They thought that people were going to be prepared to go back out and go to the theaters, and even as somebody who like misses going to the movie theaters, I wasn't about to go do that. I wasn't about to go.
Why not?
Because I wasn't about to go sit in a space that was cleaned by teenagers before I was prepared to sit in it. Some niggas don't give no fuck, man.
That is a good point, dude. If you're gonna leave the trust of my sanitization to a teenager, that makes no sense.
Nah, dude. Some dude with the broom and the bucket attached to the stick. How is he? He's not keeping me safe from COVID, dude. He's got a squeegee thing, but no wipes. What is he doing? He's rubbing it in with that little red uniform thing. I don't want this.
No, thank you. Making less than minimum wage. You can't expect anybody that makes less than minimum wage to care about what they're doing. I don't expect that. That's not fair.
You can't, dude. You can't.
That's not fair.
Right. We allow those people to do that.
Dude, in South Africa, we have a lot of the parking lot guys. They just direct you out, and they like looking at security and shit, and they give you and you give them coins. I don't expect those people to do anything if somebody does something to my car. It's just.
And you shouldn't.
Just for the thought. I don't. That would be so wrong for me to go to and be like, dude, you said.
As a broke nigga myself, I can personally vouch that we got more shit going on than whatever. They don't pay us enough to solve whatever is going on with you that happens to be happening at our job. Nah. That's going on with you. It just happens to be in my job.
That's hilarious.
That's not my problem. I can see how you would think, but that's not my problem.
You know what I think would be a very important skill to pass down to young Black youth is business and corporate etiquette. It's just bringing etiquette to, and by etiquette, I know it has somewhat of a demeaning feel to it when you say it, but by etiquette what I mean is that so many of our brightest get put into a culture that has been devised and has existed longer than anybody in their, at times anybody in their family lineage has even had the chance to be able to be a part of. So it's almost a new entire world when you're entering into this corporate space, and the type of confidence that you have entering into that world almost predicates how far in that world you'll get to. And a lot of these kids are brilliant, but they have not been given enough of the confidence that they need to approach it in a way that helps them highlight their brilliance. And so they get swept under the rug, or they get outcasted, or whatever the case is. I think there'll be some interesting stuff to bring to the youth.
I think I think you're absolutely well, I think you're absolutely right in terms of like providing a space for young people to be exposed to the corporate world as it is and helping them learn to navigate it. I think where it's really important to be careful on choosing who does that and who's responsible for like leading that type of workshop is because you don't want to turn it into anything that even like smacks of like respectability politics, right? Like, so if you just act this way, which happens to be in accordance with this institutionalized professional structure, which mirrors this institutionalized structure of um, like just white supremacy, right? Like there's something to be said for under like making sure that whoever is leading that workshop to talk about what professional decorum is does so in a way that doesn't belittle or, like you said, like demean, right, um the culture and the value in even the nuance of things like speaking in a way that doesn't necessarily conform to the way that people are expected to talk in a corporate environment, or dressing or wearing your hair
Mhm.
in a certain way that people in a corporate environment
I see what you mean.
might not necessarily. So there's it's important because a lot of our black children are raised in structures that aren't made for them, to teach them how to navigate those structures. But it's important that as we teach them how to navigate those structures, we also teach them that their culture, the structures that are
Mm.
rooted in their heritage and their history, are not wrong.
Yeah, individualism. And I think the way you do that is by making a strong emphasis on how to have confidence in your work, in your craft, in your skill, in your service, whatever it is how do you build that confidence in a manner that is not, in a manner that allows your value to be highlighted, right? And that doesn't necessarily have to come off the back of your individuality being diminished. It's just a matter of how do you, as an artist, how do you gain confidence in your business acumen in regards to the contracts you end up finding yourself in, or in the spaces you choose to present your work in, or with the materials that you use to present your work in, or how often you present your work. Things of that nature is just to be able to get people it's confidence in the sense of, if you've driven a road a number of times, it then becomes automatic and you become confident doing that drive to the point where you can, you know, start doing other things while doing that drive. You know what I mean? So it's in the same sense that I think a lot of our youth, not necessarily youth, but you know, your yuppies or whatever the case is, people who are coming into corporate are at a lag because they now have to run to catch up in doing those roads when other people have had the chance to do so through young internships, through working at dad's company, dad's store, uncle, whoever is. Those types of things I think are privileges that we
Yeah,
should afford. Mm.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think creating. So what does that look like in your head? Does it look like more internships at existing companies? Does it look like almost a mock professional, like an actual professional environment that also recreates a mock professional environment for people to like interact in, and you know what I mean? Like for you to do
Yeah,
have
yeah.
like, You have
But that's the
professional
conversation.
interview, like fake interviewers and professional. Like, is that how does it look in your head? Is what I'm asking.
That's the conversation, and that's why I brought it out. Is because I haven't thought about what it could look like, but all the things that you had pointed out in terms of having mock interviews and things like that. There's a an NGO that my friend runs called Building Blocks. Shout out to Nosy and the people, her team at Building Blocks. They do some incredible work where they essentially had these kids in these disenfranchised in these low income households um have a mock sales pitch to corporate executives and people that could be able to give them tips and to run them through. I had the privilege of being part of one of those panels where these young 13-year-olds whatever are presenting. They're selling you whatever whatever their assignments is to sell, and you critique them, and it's things like that I think are very important in giving people confidence, especially young girls, young Black girls.
Hmm. Yeah, that is really
Mhm.
cool. That is really cool.
Yeah,
And yeah, and shout
yeah,
out to her for that organization. Maybe we can put a link to that organization and some info about them in the
that could work.
description. Um, but yeah, I think that is really important, man. A lot of the I'm trying to shift my focus right now to write about, but also like implement in some small grassroots ways, like civic engagement for youth, like just trying to figure out like what are ways that, I mean, just given the current political circumstances, what are ways that we can use how much political will and like will for change there is in this moment. Like it's tangible. You can taste it. It's in the air, bro. Like people are tired of this shit universally. And they mean different things by that, but people are tired and want change. So how can you take this moment and all the chaos, right, as we spoke to earlier, that is going on, and use it to convince young people that in this moment you can make a difference. Like if there was ever a time where everything is up for grabs and you can make a change and your voice and your message and your passion is as important as your credentials, that is as messed up as that has,
Yeah,
as messed up as the results of that have been in our political system. That also means that people who have traditionally been not heard can be heard if we give them the right platforms and we give them the right tools. And so how do you use this time and to motivate like young people to be like, yo, whatever it is you do, like do it and do it well, and you can. Because
mm,
I think that is the biggest burden for a lot of kids, is that they just don't believe that it's possible, especially kids that are lower income, especially kids that don't come
yeah,
from as many opportunities. They don't feel like even their best can get them anywhere. And so
yeah.
how do you use
And
this
when the
moment?
road is, and
Yeah.
not to cut you, but like when the
But
road, a lot of the times fear stems from ignorance. And so when you're ignorant on the road that one has been on to become something that you want to become, it seems almost impossible, which is why the sharing of information into those communities is so important. Is so that type of information can get to people like, yo, let me tell you how I did it. Like, let me tell you the mistakes that I made starting what I started, the mistakes that I'm making now. More importantly, let me tell you about the sacrifices that we made in order to get to the point that we're at and what we're still sacrificing every day, because the whole concept and illusion that it looks that everything happens perfectly is not true, which is why I think this podcast is so cool, is that we highlight, we highlight not only our mistakes, but make a conscious effort to, it's all about the journey of where this grows to, you
yeah.
know that's the journey of this, the sacrifices, the mistakes, the in audio qualities, whatever it is. It's a gradual step forward in pacing oneself to become what that they want to be.
Yeah. And I think, man, as always, bro, just like helping to tie these points together so well. Um, because yeah, when I say civic engagement, like it doesn't have to be anything that's like strictly political, right? In the sense of like red and blue two-party system, like, you should vote, but it's also about whatever you do that with the intent to make the world that you want to see, right? And so just the fact that, you know, people close to you and yourself included are putting together foundations, building organizations to help other people to give back, right? The fact that we know people who own like brands of liquor and who are just manifesting their dreams, making music and like doing all types of dope stuff, like artists,
Starting
like
podcasts.
the fact that people are out here really doing it and like really giving their dreams a shot, especially to see Black folks doing this, is just amazing. And I think that we do need to share a key word that, you know, came up when you were speaking to me in my brain is transparency, right? Like show the process so that not only so that we can all learn from each other, but also that people can identify with like what you're trying to do and like what you're trying to build. And also so that the youth can see that and recognize that, you know, it doesn't have to be all smoke and mirrors and then people are successful. You know what I mean? Like you can see the stumbling into that success. And we bring you that.
And we bring you that. The Stumble Pod. The Stumble Pod. Speaking of stumbling ways into conversations, more importantly, piggybacking off of what you said, which is seeing processes and going forward. That's difficult in Black communities because a lot of Black communities, especially Black men, lack fathers inside the households, right? So it becomes difficult in terms of having role models who can set examples for you to follow. And that's the underlying importance of, or let me rather say the underlying impact of what happens when there's just no father inside of a household, is that you have not necessarily directionless men, but men who are unable to have a man to imitate from, somebody that is close and in the family. The science of bonding when it comes to child and parent is is neurologically amplified with things such as touching, affirmation, conversation, the kissing of the head, affection, those types of things, which is why that's so important for mothers and their children in early stages. That whole process of nurturing, kissing, bond, that literally changes the structure in which both parties' brains bond with each other. It's a very, very important part of the bonding process. And so when you don't have that in terms of a father,
Yeah.
and you consider the type of impulses that young men have growing up, it makes it for a very vicious cocktail.
Yeah. If nobody never, you know, like cradled you and like held you and rubbed the red stuff across your forehead, gave you to Rafiki, let him hold you up, that showed you how you're
Okay.
supposed to know that you would be king. How could you know? You wouldn't know.
Or to tell you that this is all your land, Simba.
Yeah, for sure. Everything the light touches.
Everything
the
light touches,
touches.
Simba.
No, I think I think hold up. We got hood noises going on. This podcast brought to you by South
Hood.
Shore.
I can't hear anything. What type of hood noises are we talking about? Because there's like a few hood noises.
Not the most alarming hood noises, just
Okay.
commotions. But
It's people fighting. Hood noises. People fighting.
there's definitely I mean, you broke it down for us on the clinical perspective, right? And like that was dope. And there's also just something to be said for when there's not a man present in the house, right? Regardless of like who the child might seek to emulate, when one of the parents is gone, that's a lot of responsibilities that is falling upon the other parent, but also that falls upon the kids too, right? That slack is picked up by everyone when there's not a father in the home. And I think, I mean, so I think this conversation demands from me both like humility and gratitude, just for the fact that I think if I were to be incredibly reductive, but also just like in the interest of time, like my pops was somebody who I think was so supremely concerned about the environment that I would be growing up in, that he worked so much, that worked so hard and put himself in such a position that he was able to like give me certain factors of like protection growing up, but it also meant that like it strained our relationship because of, as much as I wanted to see him and hang out with him, he was like working or not available or on doing like other stuff. Being a black dad. And all the
and all that encompasses. If
all
you
that
don't know, that's a real
entails.
thing. Yeah.
And so, but despite like any aspect of like, relationships that I wish were better with my dad, like the fact that he has been in my life without fail, like is one of the primary reasons that I'm still alive, period.
That's real.
And is one of the primary reasons that I'm in any type of position to give anything back to anybody. So like, and the fact that I still have that he's still alive, you know what I mean? He be he'd be hard to get a hold of sometimes, but he's still alive, you know what I mean? So I can talk to him and resolve, like any type of issues, or when I really feel like we have a good relationship still. So like, man, as much as some of the issues with my father have shaped me into the person I am, like despite the issues, like I'm so humbled and just grateful just to have him have cared.
Yeah, yeah. That's very transparent of you. That's very transparent. And I think when you do realize how many black men in particular grow up without dads, you have to be appreciative of the presence of I'm appreciative, let me rather say I'm appreciative of the presence of my father in my life. It's a friend of mine said to me that out of all of his friends, I'm the only one who still has a dad.
Yeah,
I'm the
it'd be
only
like
one with
that.
the dad.
It'd be like that.
That's
Yeah.
real. That's a reality in black communities where there's just vast amounts of people that grow up without fathers. I think there's definitely a particular period, and I know we went through it, where I think as a young man, in terms of your identity and who you want to be able to become, there's a point where your you let me not I don't want to say tension, but the relationship with your father can get strained and tested because now you're coming into yourself as a man. The household, maybe you're coming into becoming the man of a household, and so your mentality of your space in that universe that is would be the family starts to change, and there's a lot of friction that can come from that. But I've seen in terms in our journey getting past those types of frictions, you end up just seeing your father as a person that he is. He's just a dude that just so happened to get with my mom, who's a chick that so happened to get with this dude who so happens to be my dad. And you once you can see people on a human level, and that veil of parents of supernatural parenting, fades away. You say, oh, this is just a man who's also trying to figure it out in life and does not have all the answers and makes mistakes like I make. That's a reality of it. But definitely appreciation above everything of the sacrifices that those men have made to give us the opportunities and the springboard that we have. I mean, look at us now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's just like, bro, the fact that he is just a dude, just like trying to figure it out for sure, makes it all the more impressive because as just a dude, right? Like, imagine now, tomorrow, needing to equip yourself and prepare yourself with the tools to keep a small you alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
With all
with
the
an attitude.
tendencies and attitude that you got. You know what I mean? So like, I just
and going beyond the need, going beyond the needs, that is when there's so many people that just do not have the luxuries of having a father, and to have one that goes beyond your needs, when you get to that point of reconciling whatever strains might have, you have to put that at peak appreciation, just to say, like, somebody went beyond what they had to do just in order for me to be comfortable.
yeah,
It's an
big facts.
impressive thing for any dude to do.
Big facts. And it's even it's even more impressive when you add that human layer into it because as you spoke to, right, developing that relationship as it changes and as you become more aware of the responsibilities it takes to run and operate a household and to, like be the emotional support figure for mom siblings, aunts, cousins, you know what I mean? Like it's transformative just to see, like, as much as it can cause tension in terms of how the handoff of that goes, it's also like humbling. It's been humbling for me to see that, like, there was not only was there time and effort given up in the moment, but also like to even talk to my dad now and to see that weigh on him, and to see him now be like, bro, I'm tired. Hear me? Huh, tired. Heard what I said.
Tired.
What am I? Huh, tired. What? Tired. Everything.
All in one. All in one.
Bruh. And like, but to really see and to understand, like, as I get old enough to not even feel, but to understand that tiredness, and like how much he has had to sacrifice in just worry alone, right? And just like, for even like, and he's not a very sappy dude, but like just in a even like a very like transparent moment with me, right? He was just like, we were working on a building here, and he was living here on the south side, and he's originally from here. And he was telling me like, man, to be successful and to have raised a family and to have done that safely, and to, have had the opportunity to move to somewhere much quieter than the south side, and then to be back living here, he was like, bro, it feels traumatic. It feels trapping.
Wild.
And it just, and without any type of incident having happened, just like to be back in this environment, which speaks to what it represented for him to have to come from here.
Leave. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to have to work to raise a family here and move into a space that was safer than this for his family, and just how much weight and worry, and just for him to even like say that just was a huge moment of me just being like, this gets deep and we don't know. Like, you start to understand and see, but as a child, you don't know what your folks went through for you. If you're lucky enough to have parents that were in your life and caring for you, like, they did the most, and we don't even know. So love yours, whoever that is in your life, whoever helps you raise up, whoever that village is. Big facts.
This whole speech that you gave right now is all a long, elaborate gender reveal. Is what this is.
For what, nigga? For who? For what? Oh, that somebody a dad, nigga?
Yeah. That you're a dad. This is a long gender reveal, bro.
Yeah, all right. Giving birth to this content, nigga. That's about it. How we rocking next Thursday?
That's about it. That's about it. No, but that's real, and that's very transparent, and it's very interesting. And I wonder if this exists in a lot of just families in general. The lack of information we know about who our parents are. You know what I mean? I was with my sister at a dinner table with my father recently, and he was talking about being in jail for 2-3 years. They're like, 2-3 years you're in jail? What? Why don't you tell us this? Like, I had no clue that you were locked up as a prisoner of war, like, and that seems to be, at least in South Africa, because a lot of our parents, especially those who went to go fight against to fight oppression in the military, in the army, as Umkhonto weSizwe, a lot of it, and a lot of who went to exile and whatnot, they came back extremely traumatized. And so we kind of have learned to accept the fact that sharing information is traumatic for them, but that also leaves wide gaps in who our parents really are. We're seeing this person who was took like, all right, dropped the gun, got dusted off out of the battlefield, and got dropped back into the country. I can only imagine that to be such a traumatic experience. And it's hard because you like, it's personally, I found it difficult to be able to confront, let me not say confront, but I don't find the urge to push those conversations out. It's because you don't find the urge to do that. One, you're ignorant that your parents are actually people and have had a life before you, but two, you don't know what to ask, where to start. It's like, hey, dude, who are you? Like, tell me that story.
Dad. Yeah.
Who are you, mate? Who are you? And these are conversations we have the luxury of having, and I think it's
Big
incumbent
facts.
on us as part of the rarity of black men that have fathers to push those questions. And I think that shows evolution in the black household, where the honest conversations that we have with our fathers start at such a young age, and there's confidence behind that, and there's humanity and humility behind it, and we can start to see each other as the fragile, insecure, troubled people that we are.
Yeah, man. It's like looking in a more seasoned, grumpier mirror, dog. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Go.
Back in this thing. Back in this thing.
Back in this business.
Yo, man. Yeah, yo, first I'm super appreciative of you just like sharing, joining me on this dad ledge, bro. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it is not always easy to be, and I think a word we've used a lot this pod is transparency, right? It's not always easy to be transparent. And so I know that relationship has played a huge hand in shaping you, and so I wanted you to speak on it, but I didn't want to speak for you or put you on the spot like that. So I'm glad you shared that with us. And yeah, man.
Thanks for
So
showing me the way, brother. Thanks for showing me the way. Thanks for pushing me to be
hey,
vulnerable. I saw my co-host stepping on the ledge with that vulnerability. I stepped up right behind it. I think it's an important conversation to have, and it's one that I'm excited to be able to share this episode with my parents and my dad. And if you can listen to it up until that point, I'll be very interested to hear what his thoughts are. I'd encourage anybody to do the same too. If this can be an opening conversation into understanding who these dudes are, then I'm glad to have been a part of that.
man, I'm glad to have been a part of this. And I'm glad y'all
Indeed.
joined us. Man, I'm glad we live. I'm glad we live, baby. Listen. We know. We know.
Tell him. Tell him.
We are aware that you have
Tell him.
too many choices when it comes to checking out a podcast. But we appreciate y'all for rocking with All the Way Live. Live in the sense that we are celebrating life. Live in the sense that we are celebrating. Live in the
Hallelujah.
sense that we are celebrating Blackness and Black dads and Black villages, and Black communities, and Black everything. It's love, it's peace, and like that, we gone.
Yeah.